But we get started. I always joke, I am not a German, but I'm German enough to start on time. So let's get started with visualizing your data. So before we start, and that's something that I always do before I introduce software, I want to talk a little bit, just briefly, about why would we do this and what's the objectives, the aims that we follow when we do this. Because I think it's one thing to show click here, and I think a second thing that's always worth thinking about is what are we doing here? Why do we visualize data? Maybe you have never thought about it. Well, after a while, I started thinking about it, and I see three main reasons, sort of 3 to 4 reasons. One is data exploration. You want to look at your data from a different angle. You want to find new insights, new perspectives. So you are curious, so you visualize the data to find something new. The second thing, connected here with an and, now I don't know why I did that, but whatever, is verification of applied codes. So you might use visual tools to quality check on yourself. You will also see an example for that. The next point is data navigation and query creation. That means we can use visual tools as a map into our data, moving through our data and retrieving our data. And the last one, and that's usually the only one people think of up front, is I want to present my results. I want to create visuals because I want to show what I have found, not only as text and numbers. That's one reason, but that's definitely not the only reason. I will come back to these objectives, talking about the various tools, and giving you a hint that what is maybe useful for what. When I think about functions, especially when it comes to MAXQDA, I also try to think of in types of use cases. When we look at the visualization functions of MAXQDA, I see 3 main types. One are single case visualizations, where you have a single case, a single document, and you want to visualize that one. I will show you an example. You have multi-case visualizations where you want to compare cases, single documents or groups of documents, and we can visualize relationships of codes. I gave an example of that. I included it also in the presentation because that's often something that people are not aware that they can visualize. And when they want to visualize it, they are like, oh, damn, I would have really hoped to know that earlier. And now, today, I will show you these visualizations, not only to make you aware what you can do, but that you can also plan for them in advance. When I do a consultation with a client and they tell me what their research goal is, already the visualization tools pop up in my mind. And I'm like, okay, we want to aim for that. Maybe let's do it this way or that way. But without further ado, let's get started with a single case, a single document visualization, the code line. And I would say, I mean, all of these 5 that I'm going to show you today are in one way or another my favorites. And the code line is my favorite visual tool for visualizing a single document. What it does is it displays a sequential views of the coded segments of a document. I will create this visualization with you together, and then we will understand in a second what it means. I have here MAXQDA open. This is, by the way, a little bit cut down version of the example project work-life balance. So you can use the example project work-life balance in your MAXQDA to achieve the same things that I do. Just if you want to replicate this, for example, later with the video to see, hey, what did he do? The code line I will show you on a special type of document, on this focus group document here. And you don't need to know in detail now what a focus group is, but I will introduce you to the visual tool. What we have here is we have a code per person. So we have a code here that shows here, wait a second, I'll cut this down a little bit. Just that you are aware what we have here. We have here a document. This is many people speak in this document, a group discussion, you could say. And we know that here the moderator is talking, here Olga is talking, here Fatima is talking, here Andy is talking. So we can take a look here. And each person is, in this case, coded with their own code. Now let's look at the code line. First, I just activate these speakers, and I look at them through the code line. I hit OK, and this chart comes up. what we see here is a line. So this is the document. You see here paragraph 1 to 56. That's the length of our document. 56 is our last one. And we see here in paragraph 1 to 4, the moderator starts talking, and then Olga continues, and then Fatima, and then Andy, and then Pranav. So we see here the various codes. And this is especially nice for analyzing all kinds of natural conversations, group settings in particular, because you are able to tell when people are quiet, for example, or when a certain topic is not addressed. For example, here we see the moderator talks, everyone asks a question or gives a response. The moderator talks, everyone says something, but wait a second, Pranav didn't answer that question, right? Here. Then we have here the moderator again, and then we see that here there's a big discussion going on, uninterrupted by the blue moderator. This is a client of mine, works with a teacher, student, children conversation, pupil conversations in a school setting. Here you can immediately see when is the child talking and when is the child quiet. This is a fantastic tool for that purpose. And I also want to illustrate to you, I here just activated these 5 codes and I hid all the other codes because I don't want to display too much at the same time. I will now add more codes into the mix, and then you will see I activate more codes, I update this, and now you have more codes. That's a very typical thing that I do with visual tools. First, start with a few codes, a few documents, and then keep building it instead of visualizing everything all at once. So what we now see here is the themes of the group discussion. These are thematic codes. And we see that they start out their group discussion with motivations for getting a student job. And then we see here effects on study is this code here. And that's the nice thing about the code line. You can look at the codes in parallel. We see then that here effects on the study triggers quite a discussion. So Pranav says something, Andy, Fatima, Olga, then Andy again, then Andy again, then Andy again. Andy says something here 4 times. Andy seems very engaged in the topic effects on studies. And then we come to the topic of the group discussion, psychological effects here. Well, this is very short-lived. The moderator says something, 1, 2, 3 people say something, and then they move on. Apparently, this was not a very detailed topic. So you can do a very detailed analysis, in particular of group discussions, but also of a single interview where you see what codes overlap, what codes are addressed at the same time. Every code here has its own row. The columns are the paragraphs of your document, and the colors represent the colors of your code. And you can do a very detailed analysis on who is talking, and it's really the best tool to visualize when someone is silent in a discussion, for example, because I would never have noticed that here the moderator shuts up for so long, or that Olga here is completely zooming out from this discussion here at this segment. And here the purpose of the tool, if we think about our purposes again, is I want to find new insights, because I want to, it's exploratory basically, because I want to take just a different look at my data, because if I just read through the text, it's very hard to keep track of who is talking when and who is not talking where, and to see that, okay, the topic psychological effects and flexibility did not get much attention. If this up here would be your interview guideline, as codes, you could immediately see where are they talking in detail and where not. This is the code line. If there's anything immediately unclear about the code line, please just speak up in the chat. I always have an eye on the chat. If something, if you're like, hey, I don't get it, then please let me know here. And I will then move on to the next visual tool, and that is the code matrix browser. It's also one of my huge favorites, and I also show it here because I use it for quite a different purpose than the code line. Here we see a code matrix browser, and what the code matrix browser does is it visualizes the distribution of a code and its coded segments across multiple documents. It's a multi-case visualization. The code matrix browser is no fun at all with just one document, but it's lots of fun when you have 5, 6, 7, 10 documents. I will again call it up and then explain it to you. And then I will tell you a little bit what I use it for. I'll go back to my interviews. We leave the focus group behind because that's not the most fascinating topic here at the moment. And I just took a look. I now activate only the documents from Hamburg here with clicking here on the circle because I want to limit it. I don't want to see too much at the same time. It's just too confusing. And then I activate here only the code work-life balance and its subcodes. We see here I activated 8 codes and 6 documents. That's nice. Not 50 documents and 200 codes. Then you will see nothing. And I remember when I first opened the code matrix browser, I was like, I'm seeing nothing. This is too much. Activation will limit what you see, but it will at the same time make things much clearer. Let's open up under Visual Tools, the code matrix browser. Yeah, I see there's a question, but I think I can address it in just a second. I'll finish up the code matrix browser and then I come back to Emma's question. I just leave the options for now, the default options. And when you call up the code matrix browser for the first time, it looks something like this. What does this tell us? This is a code matrix. So you have the codes here: education, friends and family, work life, domestic, childcare. These are the codes here from my code system. This one goes here. And the 5 documents that I selected go here into the columns. And the size of the square tells me how frequent does this code appear in this document. I can change here to numbers, and I will immediately get the numbers. I'll actually prefer the heat map here. Let's take this one. You have here four options how you want to visualize it. Let's take the heat map here to understand it better. We see here, oh, I didn't want the focus group included. Yeah, so now it's clear. We see here that Tatiana, so we have, for example, here the codes friends and family. And we see that Anne talks about this topic 4 times. We have 4 coded segments. Kasumi Amadi 1 time, and Tatiana talks 6 times, or we have 6 coded segments about friends and family. You can now use this to see who is like talking a lot about a certain topic. We see that Tatiana, David, and Anne talk quite a lot about friends and family. Kasumi and Amadi are not saying so much about that. So you can see who in your data is driving a certain topic a lot. I mean, Tatiana accounts for 6 out of 16 segments about friends and family. She really puts in a lot of content about this. So you can put into perspective, okay, I know that Tatiana is a bit special. But this is just one thing to find out who's sort of the expert or a special driver of a topic. But you can also use it to see how widespread a certain code is. So, for example, we see here that the code education, everyone said something about it. Friends and family, everyone said something about it. Work-life separation, Anne and Kasumi didn't say anything. Domestic work, Kasumi and Amadi didn't say anything. Childcare, only Kasumi, Tatiana, and David said something. What I use this for is to quality check on my own coding. Did Tatiana really not say anything about free time and self-care? But my interview guideline said, how are you spending your free time? Didn't she say anything, or did I forget to ask it? Or did I forget to code it? The code matrix browser is, apart from the new insights perspective, it's for me that tool to check if I didn't miss anything in my interview questions or in my coding. Because if you have an interview guideline, there are certain topics that should be addressed by everyone. And if they are not addressed by everyone, you will see it here. It's interesting that we have 41164, but the 11 here at friends and family, this is because there is the question in the interview guideline, how are you doing about friends and family? But this is very valuable. And just 2 days ago, I had a call with a client. We did exactly the same thing. And she was like, can we stop the call and then continue tomorrow? Because I have to check back with my coding. I think I did a mistake here. And I really want to get my results finished up. And well, she missed some of the coded segments. It wasn't too bad, actually. It was a valid result, but this is something that you see here. And that's what I mean with, this tool here is not even so important for communicating your results to a colleague. This is finding new insights. Certainly, Tatiana is going wild about friends and family, but this is also quality checking on yourself. It's a multi-case document. And one important requirement here, if our codes are too fine-grained and we don't have a code that appears in several documents at the same time, this tool is useless. So if I have a special code for Anna, a special code for Kasumi, a special codes that only Amadi addresses, here for this tool to work, we need a code system that applies to all our data evenly, or at least to a modest degree. So you also know, if you want to use the code matrix browser, don't go crazy with your codes. Because if you have like a horizontal line, a diagonal line, then it just means you have one code per person and this tool is useless. So just that you see what is the point of it. Code matrix browser, you compare the frequency of a code or the distribution of a code across data. Education, 2 times in Anne, 1 time in Katsumi, 1 time in Mamadi, 1 time in Tatiana, 1 time in Dave. Be careful with putting too much emphasis on the numbers, but it's a perfect tool for quality checking on your coding and on your interview guideline. That's the code matrix browser. Yeah, I briefly addressed the question that Emma asked for the code line. If you want to include another document into an existing code visual, this is a great transition. Emma asks if you want to include another document into an existing code line visualization, do you have to start over again? Let's try real quick. I think, yeah, you need to start over because the code line is always for the currently opened document. If you click here, or if you right click on a document, then it's for this one. You have to start over if you use a new document. But I will now show you a tool that's why it makes for a good transition. That's that's a relative of the code line, but used for a bit of a different purpose. Okay, Daniel's question will address a little bit later, just because it's too long for me to read now. I answered this one. I'll show you the document comparison chart next. What we can do with the document comparison chart is basically a code line for multiple documents at once. Imagine the code line that we had, but you do it for 5 documents at the same time. That's the basic thing here. I now take it for all the codes, but just for the group Hamburg here. I hit OK. And now we see this thing. Here now every line, as of every row, is one document. There is not like a row per code, but it's all compressed into one. That's why we have these mixtures of colors here. And this helps us to understand the overall structure of our documents. What we will typically find here, and what we also see here, is that there are certain topics here. The work-life balance codes here are more at the beginning. And then we have this block here, color-wise. And here in the end, we have these turquoise codes, which is for the future. So we see here roughly the interview guideline coming through. But it can also tell us on who elaborated a lot on what. And one thing that I did not show yet is, with all the visual tools, I really should have shown that earlier, is that they are not only visual tools, but they are interactive. So I can say, hey, didn't I code anything here? What's this gap? I can double click and MAXQDA takes me to the exact same position in the document. Yeah, I just managed to somehow move my document comparison chart out of the interface, but I want to show you the document comparison chart with a different example anyways. I want to show it to you from, didn't I have this one open earlier? I had it open earlier. Yeah, whatever. I'll just open this one here. It's German, but it doesn't matter. I just want to show you a really nice example of what's my favorite visualization with this, or favorite instance with this. Okay, something went wrong. I have to restart Strange. I didn't have that problem with this data before. I'll just bring it back up, and I'll show you an example. Let's get the English version here. This one was actually the project I wanted to show you. Maybe it will then get better. So document comparison chart is analyzing the code structure across different documents. You can see who lingers on with a topic. You can see what's the emergent thematic structure across various documents. This is particularly useful if you have documents that are process generated. If it's so, process generated means you didn't ask an interview, but you got a protocol of a meeting, for example. Someone said something about a meeting, Daniel. If you have protocols from, oh yeah, if speeches by a president or whatever, a documents that are naturally occurring, that you didn't like create yourself. And I will show you in a second why. Let's just get this up and hope that it doesn't crash now, else I will just give up on this interface here. I wanted to limit this. Yeah, it's already working. So here, this is a best case example of what you can use the document comparison chart for. These here are historical documents from an archive. And you see here, they have a very specific structure. And what we can tell is that they always follow a very similar-ish document structure. So we see here from paragraph 3 to 6, there's always the red code being used in these court records from the 16th and 17th century. This is a great example for this tool. And then we have here these blue and turquoise codes from 7 to 9. This is in the middle. And then we have this black code. Some people go on and on and on about the black topic. Some people keep the black topic out or very short. And then in the end, there comes usually the brown topic. Well, even without knowing what these codes represent, you can see, I didn't know it before I opened up this tool, that these court records follow a very similar thematic structure. In this case, the accused people meet the devil, make a pact with him, then they gather for a meeting, and then they do harmful magic. And it's always the same sequence. It's not open to tell me what you feel or what you think. It's always the same story structure. Also, if you would analyze stories or literature or any documents that you did not immediately fabricate yourself, in the sense of not an interview that you conducted, so you can see here how much attention is paid to what topic, in how much detail, how do these topics overlap, and what is the overall emerging structure from my codes. I can also double click here on, for example, a gap. This is again helpful for making sure I didn't miss anything. I can double click here and then read this statement and make sure, is it okay that I have left this uncoded? Again, fantastic for quality checking too, not only for creating insights or communicating your insights. Okay, Vanessa asked something that I can quickly address. Can you also only visualize by parent codes only? That strongly depends on the tool that you're using. Here, we are just visualizing the color. So you see here, I have the parent code and the subcodes all in black. So it's all portrayed in black. Makes it much easier. In this case, I would just make sure that the parent codes and the subcodes have the same color, and you're fine with this tool. If I quickly go back to the document comparison, to the code matrix browser, because it's actually really good that you addressed this. If I go back to the code matrix browser, I will now visualize. I will do what I recommended not to do, activate everything. I open the code matrix browser here again. And what you see here is I can, with this option up here, the display codes with hierarchy, I can collapse and expand the codes as I wish. So if you have a lot of subcodes, especially with the code matrix browser, it's no problem at all you can just collapse and expand them to the level of detail that you need. So that's here. The solution. And what I wanted to show you here too, that's also why I came back, is if you say, hey, here I want to know what these 3 wishes for the future are by Amadi, I can double click here and MAXQDA will bring up only these 3 segments. So again, it's very helpful in getting back into your data. I will finish up showing you 2 more tools, and then we'll go into the questions. Document comparison chart we also had. I want to do 2 more, and one of them is, as I said, a code relationship visualization. What you do by this is that you analyze code co-occurrence. Does a code appear at the same point of the data at the same time? So a good example here is, we here have, for example, a code system where people talk about topics, education, friends, family, and then we have a code for satisfaction, happy or unhappy, negative or positive. Here this person says, regarding flexibility, I coded this with flexibility, I am not happy. I coded this with negative. These co-occur here. See, so a coded segment, a segment of the text can hold more than just 1 code, can hold also 2 codes. And we can analyze this systematically via the code relations browser. I will just here say I want to visualize, in my case, work-life balance as activated codes as the row, and as the columns, I pick negative and positive. You need to know how to set this up a little bit, but I just want to show you the general principle of it. And now I can hit OK. And then I will see here, how often does education appear together with the code positive and the code negative. This looks similar to the code matrix browser, but we have codes both in the columns and the rows. And we see how often do they overlap. It's basically a co-occurrence table. And we see here the huge red square, friends and family negative overlaps quite a lot. We can also again look at this in numbers, and we see that there are 11 statements where people seem to be happy about friends and family, and 20 where they say, I'm not so happy. Because there seem to be 20 statements where people say, I would wish to be able to spend more time with my family. Then this would be here a negative statement. I can again click on these 20, I can double click, and the 20 segments come up, and we will see, I would be happier if my girlfriend and I could spend a little bit more time together. Strictly speaking, she's not your friend and not your family, she's your girlfriend, but let that be fine. Here, the main thing is that she works very long, and I don't like that. So we see here the statement where people are about friends, families, and partners talking maybe in a negative way. And this is very important to know because you can plan for this. Yeah, and what you can do with this is you can build multi-dimensional code systems. For example, you can build topics, and then you could build levels of satisfaction or agreement, disagreement. For example, a client of mine does like what measures do logistical firms take, and she has different measures, and then you could create a code. Does this measure, this intervention work or not work? And then you could do this with a second code, and you can here get a clearer view if something is positive or negative, just as one example. You can use this in many ways, but you need to plan for this in coding. This is not so much a tool for quality checking, also not for finding new insights. This is really a targeted tool. Like, I want to analyze that. I will use the code relations browser. For this reason, I will code in a certain way so that I can use this later. Just to be aware, code co-occurrences, 2 codes at the same text segment. You can analyze this systematically with the code relations browser. So now I give myself 3 minutes for the last tool, because then we still want time for your questions. I notice even 5 tools in half an hour is a lot. The last one is, as I always say, my actually favorite visual tools, because it's the visual tool that does not necessarily quantify your data. It does not necessarily count it. And I will just show you the basic idea of it. I will skip the slide and come straight to it. MAXMaps is a tool that allows you to build sort of a mind map out of MAXQDA elements. Let's go here to Visual Tools, MAXMaps. I can create a new map. This interface looks like that. I can create a new map. And then I can, this is basically a white canvas, and I can drag and drop all kind of MAXQDA elements onto this interface. And I can connect them with arrows if I like to. Maybe this way. I can make them big and small. I can organize things nicely. And you can build sort of flowcharts or concept maps manually. This was incredibly helpful for me in one of my theses, just to organize all my data nicely. And this, again, it's a map. It stays interactive. So I can double click here on typical Workday on the code, and the code will open up. I can click on this document, and the document will open up. I can click on this segment, and MAXQDA will take me to the corresponding segment. Extremely useful. Just one last thing about it, you can also use predefined models. I can, for example, my favorite one, two-case model. I can say I want to compare Riley and Tatiana, and then a concept map comes up that shows us what Riley and Tatiana have in common and what they don't have in common. I can accept this and then keep building and changing this. So this is especially for qualitative researchers who say, I don't want to count, I don't want to quantify everything. I just want a nice way how to visualize my data, my models, my theories, my insights. MAXMaps is particular. If you're doing grounded theory, you need to use MAXMaps because that's, in my opinion, the visual tool for grounded theory. Also for other methods, but grounded theory, I don't see a way around MAXMaps. And this is a good transition because I know that right after this session, another trainer, I think Karen, is doing a session on on grounded theory. You can go to her. I'm 100% sure she will show you MAXMaps or creative coding at some point of time. We'll give you a quick conclusion and then we go ahead into the questions. So we have seen a lot of tools, a lot of purposes. You can download the slides, the handout, and rewatch the recording. I know even 5 tools is still a lot. I just want to give you a my last thoughts about requirements and limitations. Be careful with visualizations. Visualizations often imply counting, quantification, especially with code matrix browser or code relations browser, because, well, we often we often visualize numbers, and we have to make certain if our numbers mean what we actually mean for it. Some visual tools require specific coding techniques for valid and helpful results, especially the code relations browser. Also, I didn't mention that yet, but consider the data structure and the heterogeneity, however you say it. Consider a data structure, because a long document, for example, will always give you a much higher frequency than a short document. And this might, in the code matrix browser, Tatiana, we saw Tatiana was talking a lot about various topics. Maybe Tatiana was just the longest interview and she had to say something to fill the time. So be very mindful about your data. And what I in general recommend when you see a visual result, first, make sure you understand what you're seeing. Question if you made a coding mistake, maybe. And when you cannot explain your visual result away, then go to content-wise explanations. Don't immediately jump to a conclusion just because it's your visual tool. First, really make sure that it means what you think it means. I'll leave it at that. Let's go with the questions. You can have a look at the slides. There are so many more amazing visual tools, but I think we saw a lot of everything. Sorry, my mouse just died. That's something that I'm not prepared for. So I would like to go to the questions, but my mouse is sleeping. Elias, if you're here, maybe you can read the questions to me. That would be fantastic.
Yep.
Because then I'll fix up my mouse a little bit later.
Okay.
From the question and answer section, I saw 3 or 4. Maybe you just want to read them.
Yeah.
If you can. That would be fantastic. Thank you.
We have one question from one moment, from Najaro. Which visual tools are best suited for content analysis?
Yeah. Let's just go one by one. Is there more to this question? No, that's a question.
Yep.
Yeah. Content analysis. There is not like I mean, I said use MaxMaps for grounded theory. For content analysis, there is not the visual tool for it, but I would look closely at the Code Matrix browser. We saw it as the second tool today, the Code Matrix browser, because it helps you to make sure that your coding is consistent. It helps you with distribution of codes. I think for content analysis, Code Matrix browser is really a good visualization tool. The other one I also find, but I think that's one I would recommend. Okay.
Okay. Then we have one question from Xiao. Can we compare codes based on speaker's gender or social class or age?
Yeah, what you would need to do for that is to use the mixed methods function. You can see it on the top left of my screen looking over. Mixed methods function, what you need to use for that are document variables. This is not necessarily it's not necessarily a visual tool. I'm sure I also saw a mixed methods session in the MAXDAYS. Best you just watch the mixed methods session. Mixed methods means in the simplest way, you have variables such as gender, age, whatever, and then you can compare your code frequencies based on that. Take a look at the mixed methods spotlight session.
Then we have a question from Megan. Once you save a map made in MaxMaps, can you come back in and edit further? At one point, I was under the understanding that once saved, these were static and there was a need to recreate them again in order to rebuild or change.
Yeah, so MaxMaps stay completely interactive. So you can just call them up via MaxMaps again and make changes later. This is, I would say, one of the most flexible tools in that you can still continue working later. What you maybe meant, there is the creative coding tool. It's a little bit similar to that. There you're a bit more limited in the sense of with creative coding, you can reorganize your code system and it loses the live connection once you finish that. But MaxMaps, to answer straight to the question, MaxMaps, you can always continue and edit later at any point in time.
Then we have another question. How could the labeling of a MAXQDA map fonts change in Times New Roman 12 before exporting it in Word document?
For which function what was it? For MaxMaps?
The labeling of a MAXQDA map fonts change.
The labeling of the in general you can in the MaxMaps. My battery of my mouse died. That's something that I never planned for. But it happened at the best time. You can change the fonts for the MaxMaps in the MaxMaps interface. For this specific, you can change like the size and also the font, but there are some limitations to. You cannot change fonts everywhere, but in MaxMaps it shouldn't be a problem. You should just select the text and then change the fonts. After I would love to try it now, but I have to get new batteries before my next session. Yeah, you can change the fonts in general and the sizes for MaxMaps, but it's a bit limited. I know sometimes you would wish to use a different font. Leave it in the feedback section. I would love to just set a default font in the settings, and that would be the perfect solution, I think.
Yeah, then maybe let's go through the last questions. Tonight at 8:15, there's also another sessions for any unanswered questions. You're welcome to join. We'll quickly go through these last two short sessions. Questions. One is, do we have a visual tool for just focus group, or what is the best tool for focus group according to your opinion?
Yeah, focus group, CodeLine. The first tool we saw, CodeLine, is, in my opinion, the must-go tool for focus groups. And if you have several focus groups, you can also try the document comparison chart. But CodeLine is definitely the one I would use for focus group. And with focus group, please keep in mind that there is a specific focus group function in MAXQDA with which you can import a focus group transcript. You just say import and then select focus group, and it will automatically recognize the speakers and make your life much easier for you.
Okay, and then one very last one. Which are the best visual tools for presenting codes from historical documents in a qualitative data analysis research?
Oh, I'm really angry that I don't have my mouse. Because I do history, I was a historian before I started this. I studied history, bachelor and master's degree. It depends on your type of data. I have an article about that. You find it on the MAXQDA press. There's an edited volume, volume 1. You find an article where I show examples with historical legal data. And for me, the most insightful tools were the document comparison chart and the code matrix browser, because it helped me to understand how certain topics or codes spread across document and what's the underlying structure. These were the two visual tools that were the most helpful to me. I have a paper about that. You know what? I will post the paper, link to the paper in the lobby right after the session, as soon as I got new batteries into my mouse. Or a new mouse, whatever is faster. Okay, anything else?
No, that's it.
That's it. Okay, then thank you for everyone. I think it was perfect timing for my mouse to break down 5 minutes before the end. Else we would have wasted precious time. I hope you got a good overview. Thank you for all your interest. Yeah, one thing that I didn't show, it was usually my last slide. I'm a one-person company. I'm a freelancer. So you can hire me for personal consultations, for webinars, for trainings. You find my profile under the speaker profiles. Muller Mixed Methods is my company name if you want to reach out to me. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You just Google Andreas Müller and you see the guy with this face and shirt. I always love to get in touch with you. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Elias. You saved my day with the questions, because until I would have gotten a new battery, the session would be over.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.